Hello and welcome to another edition of Sun Dragon Tips and Tricks. Today I thought I would talk a little bit about something that I have been doing recently. This is the second version of this wonderful dragon that I made. It's by Entwined Loops is the pattern. Tahesha, I believe that's how you say it, the dragoness. I put it in the back of my niece's sweater for her birthday, which was yesterday. And I just made this one that is going to be a sample for the shop. I did it with bigger yarn so you can see everything better. And this is all made with cables. Now, I'm not going to lead you through how to do all of the fancy stuff in this today. But if you're interested in the very basics of how to do a super basic cable, and a cable is basically where stitches twist and change places, and you do it with a cable needle. This is a fancy one. There's some pretty basic ones too. If you're interested in learning from the beginning, I highly recommend going back and checking out. I had a basic cable video that I've already done, which is just doing a simple twist. The very basics of cabling is only changing 2 sets of cables so they look like they twist around each other. It looks like voodoo magic. I promise it's not. What I thought I would address today are the braids that I made on the sides. So the middle of this is much more of an advanced cabling technique. Wonderfully written pattern, totally followable if you have experience with cables, and it's both written out and diagrammed, and there's, as long as you're willing to absorb a lot of information, you can do that. This I would call a level 2 cable, where understanding how cables work, how they are left leaning or right leaning, can be very helpful. So I'm going to map out, try to diagram, try to show you a little bit of that today, and how if you understand that, you can make a braid yourself. So just come along for the ride if you're not ready to engage in this yet, and see if it kind of starts to click a little, or just enjoy. So let's get to it. So understanding cables, after you've gotten the basics of a cable down, what I think can be the most helpful is understanding how they function, how they lean in different directions, this way or this way. And I am going to use that to demonstrate how to make a braid today. I call it cabling level 2. Again, if you really want just the basics of how cables work, you might want to go back and check out my basic cabling video. I'll try to put it in the links on the description. So something to consider is often they will either call them left-leaning or right-leaning cables, and the instructions might have that written out as a front or a back. And so let's see why that works. So I've drawn out a whole bunch of different things here that I'm hoping we can piece out and help make sense of this. If we look at, I've got them pictured here, the best I can do to draw them out. They're a little muddy, but If we think about, we knit up, and so what you will see will go from the bottom up. And so these stitches down here, when you work your cable, say we have orange and we have purple. Now, a left leaning is one that leans towards the left. So that means these orange stitches are what end up being visible on top, and they move over to the left. A cable is all about making stitches change places. In this case, we are making two stitches, 4 total, switch places. So a left-leaning one means that they have, regardless, these same 4 stitches have switched places. Left-leaning means the ones you see on top of this twist lean to the left, and so they happen to be the ones that were originally on the right are on top. right leaning, again, if we start with the same 4 stitches down here, 2 purple and 2 orange, they will still switch places exactly the same distance. We will end up with orange up here and purple up here. But if it's right leaning, the stitches that we see up on top are the ones that lean to the right, which means the ones that were originally on the left are on top. And that is one of the things that I have written out here. I'm going to finish coloring this in. Left leaning, right leaning. It's determined by what stitches are in front. These two, the exact same thing happened, in a way, is 2 stitches from the right and 2 stitches of the left traded places. By the end, orange went from right to left, and purple went from left to right. But the stitches on top, the stitches that are in the front, or we could call it being on top, in terms of what you can see, determine which way the twist looks like it happens. So how do we determine that? That really is determined by where the cable needle hangs out in the middle of the stitch. If you looked at my intro video, the cable needle takes some stitches off and hangs out either in the front of the work or in the back of the work. So front or back. Where the cable needle hangs out determines which way this thing leans. So if the cable needle is in front, that is going to lead to a left leaning cable. And if the cable needle is in back, that is going to lead to a right leaning. And part of what helps this make sense is the cable needle is knit second. So whether it is in front or in back is going to determine which stitches end up in front or in back. Now just saying that is a lot easier than understanding it. Again, I'm going to come back to this guy. If we apply this, the way that this one is made, the left leaning cable is made by the cable needle, which I'm going to abbreviate all over the place, CN. CN being in front. And the right leaning one, the cable needle, is in back. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. Before we do it with actual yarn, let's see if we can piece out any more some of the basics. Before we get to the braid pictures I made, let's take a look over here. First thing I'm going to do is once again color code these. These end ones are the purl stitches which frame. The purl stitches which will frame a really nice cable. I'm not going to color them in. What we are concerned with are these 4 stitches here and what is going to happen with them. So just like before, we're going to have the ones on the right are going to be orange, and the ones on the left are going to be purple, to see what happens. And I may actually erase them as we move them over. All right? So what has to happen, this is, clarify a couple of things here. We have our left needle, our right needle, 1 purl stitch is already done, and this is an overhead shot. This is my attempt to kind of graph this out a little bit. So the first thing we're going to do, and some of this is just going to evaporate for a second, all right? So to do a cable needle front with this, again, 4 stitches, I want 2 and 2 to switch places. So these 2 stitches, I'm going to slide the orange ones onto a cable needle. Step 1, the orange ones go onto a cable needle, and I'm going to hold it in front. So I will put them right here on an extra cable needle. And you know that I like, my favorite cable needle is one that has a short end and a long end. Some way to tell them apart, right? So I'm going to take my cable needle and I'm going to hold it in front. The front side towards me. Because let's label that too. This is front and this is back. If I take those orange guys and hold them in front, they're in storage, they're in timeout. So they have been taken off of this now. And just in case it helps, here's our tip still. That's what it'll look like. I know there'll be a lot of strings attached. I'm just trying to take it down to the basics. I've taken my orange stitches and I've put them in front. Then we're going to knit. Step 2 is to knit the purple, which moves them over here. So if we do that, our purples come over here so the purples have moved behind this way. And then step 3 is knitting these onto that right needle again. So step 3 is knit orange off the cable needle. In essence, they should have been here, but they are moving there. So once that happens, and I might leave my cable needle here, but he'll be empty now. And I would have slid him to the longer end. Whee! Again, just hang along for the ride here. Oh, that's a it's gonna be a funky looking cable needle no matter what. Let me give space for these to be colored. So, if we want to think about what was here, originally, what was over here was our orange and our purple. And by what we did by holding the orange in front, they have moved this way. In the overhead shot, the purple went behind, the orange went in front. Let's take a look at what happens if that same thing is done, but with a back, with a cable needle held in back. So again, this is the same idea of this is an overhead shot. This is the back. This is the front. And let's see what happens to these stitches. I'll do like I did before of kind of showing you where they were in the beginning. But what we'll do this time, we had our purl stitch, and now we're going to take these 2 stitches, which, you know, let's color code them. We're going to slide these 2 off. Step 1. We're going to take them onto the cable needle, but we're going to hold them in back. So the orange go onto the cable needle, but it's held in back. And instead of doing this front, as much detail as in the front, we are just going to also keep these to an overhead. So 2 stitches on a cable needle that even if we can't see what points down, they are held in back. And these are going to be our orange guys right here. So they're not here right now. The purples are on the tip of our left needle. And step 2, we're going to knit the purple. So these guys are going to move. They're over here now, but they've gone in front, so they've gone this way. And before we knit this last one, step 3 is still knit orange off of the cable needle. But that means that they will have moved, if they disappear from here, and they end up right here, they have moved behind. The purple is what looks like it's in front. So again, if I want to map back in here our stitches, what was orange first, purple second, has moved over to be purple first and orange second. However, the ones that moved in front, we slide this back down. See, the direction that they moved is different. Front means that the orange move in front, and holding the cable needle in the back means that the purple stitches move in front. So my last little marking in here is going to be the cable needle. Let's put our little shadowy figures. Cable needle was in front on this one. Cable needle was held in back on this. That might help with my after shot of all this. It's crazy, I know. Stick with me. So how do we apply all of this craziness that I've just tried to logically explain to you? Probably got things so much more confusing. How do we take this and apply it to a braid? First, let's take a look at the basic dynamics of a braid. In a braid, every cable is 2/3 of the stitches. So instead of having a basic twist where it always looks, where we have even stitches, we have, say, 2 and 2, and they always look like they twist around like this. This is a twist. There's 2 and 2 in this, and it always goes the same direction. A braid, think about anyone who's braided hair. A braid is divided into 3 sections. We could say 2, 2, and 2. 6 stitches instead of 4. And for part of the braid, like think about when you braid your hair. 3 sections, 2 of them trade places. Two of them trade places. And then in the next one, and they trade places in a different order. And then the next one, they trade places again in a different order. Now here's the crazy thing about braiding your hair versus braiding with a cable. So hair, when you're braiding your hair, you're usually going top down. Let's put in here, hair goes top down. Knitting goes bottom up. So to have it look like a hair braid like this, I actually need to figure out what the heck is going on with the cables down here. That is why the cables on the dragon piece that I made, they look more like this one than that one. I realized that as I was finishing it. I was doing what I consider the easiest idea of, as I went bottom up, I just kept having things twist towards the center. I kept having things twist towards the center. So the first thing that happened was, so first we had this happen, and then we had this happen. And then the third one is actually a replica of the first one. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's stop there, because if we take a look at this, 1, 3, and 5, they are all happening with the right 2/3 of stitches, and they are all leaning the same direction. Take a look at these arrows. They are all left leaning. And then 2, 4, and 6, those are all right leaning. If you take a look at those arrows, right? So, how do we figure out how to do that? It means that each time it moves, the cable is moving in opposite directions with a different 2/3 of stitches. There's a similarity in the middle. Let's see if we can map this out. This may help some people, and other people it may hurt your brains. Again, stick with me. Let's take these 3 sets of stitches and let's label them. We have A, we have B, and we have C. All right? If it helps. I'm not going to draw out all the stitches here because it's going to get muddy. We're going to keep colors going though. If I am going to replicate what I did over here, step 1 is going to be a left leaning with B and C, which means I need to put C, that will be, remember, it's always worked across this way. C is going to end up on the cable needle, and it's going to be in front. And so what's going to happen is I am going to have these 2 stitches. Let's take them all the way over to the center. Are going to swap places with these 2 stitches. And these 2 stitches are just going to go straight up. Now the next time I hit a right side row, number 2, which is that I'm going to do a right leaning cable. I'm going to use A, and actually what's C right now, which is in the middle. C is still, guess what, going to be the one that goes on the cable needle, but it's going to be cable needle in back. Because what I want to have happen is I want them to go behind. I want A to end up in front. And I want these C guys to go behind. You could even just kind of have them go like that, right? And guess what? Before any of that happened, B just stayed where it was. So knitting them across meant we do B, C goes on a cable needle and goes in back, A gets knit first, and then C gets knit. That was 2. Now to have step 3 happen over there, and I'm running out of space, but we're going to twist these guys over here. We want another left leaning cable, and it's going to be with the first 2/3 of this cable. So it's going to be, it's going to use A and B. The B is the one going on the cable needle, and he's going to go in front. And what we'll end up with is him crossing over, and these guys ending up over here. And my C stitches are just going to be over there. You can see how we're starting to have the braid. The next I would take these guys and twist them. So one thing we should add on here is in step 1 we had a left leaning cable. The left leaning cable is with stitches 1 through 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 in the order that you knit them. The right leaning cable right here is with stitches 3 through 6. I'm going to put it right here. This cable happened with stitches 1 through 4. This cable happened with stitches 3 through 6. Notice those middle 2 are still being used. This cable happened with stitches 1 through 4 again. And I find you don't have to keep track of all these colors, you just have to keep track of what stitches are doing what. It's an optical illusion. A lot of cabling is an optical illusion. So let's see how this works with real yarn. Okay. So most cable patterns will have you do fancy stuff on the right side because the charts or the instructions will more replicate what's happening and have the back side be what we call a set row. Now my dragon was different. It was super complicated. It had stuff on both sides, but the braid I want to talk about today is only going to use the right side. So we're on the right side here. I have my stitch markers marking off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches that are going to braid. And remember, every time we do a cable, we're only going to use 2/3 of it. So we're going to use these 4 on our first right side row, these 4 right here, and then these 4 the next time we pass that way. For now though, I find often if you really want your cables to pop, you should have purl stitches on either side. It kind of presents a relief that the knit stitches can then pop out from. So I'm going to purl my 4. And then I'm going to get ready to cable. I've got my stitch marker there so I know when I'm starting. Now, my cable is going to involve these 2 stitches, and I want it to look like it's bending inwards, so I want it to be a left-leaning cable. Left leaning means the cable needle is in front. So I'm going to grab my cable needle. This is a fancy one. This is one I can twist to be any shape I want. I like this because I take it on the complicated bend and I knit off the simple side. So I'm going to take my complicated bend here and I'm going to slip 1, 2 stitches off. And since I want these to be the visible ones to look like they're leaning in, I'm going to hold them in front. I'll get them onto that bend and hold it in front. Then I'm going to knit my next 2. I'm going to try to ignore that cable needle down there. And then I'm going to flip my cable needle up, shift it over, and knit the 2 off the cable needle. It gets tight. Do your best to muscle it through. Then remember from our picture, so it is left leaning. I still have 2 left and I'm just going to knit them because they are not the part of the braid that I'm working on right now. That's the first section. And I'm going to purl my last 4. Now on my backside row here, no cabling is going to happen. I'm going to do what I call knitting my knits and purling my purls. So these guys I'm going to knit up to the stitch marker. Move my stitch marker over, set my yarn to purl, and I'm going to purl my 6. This sets the cable in place. It might be tight where I did that twist. That's okay. Means my purl yarn doesn't always want to catch. Set my yarn for knitting because I've hit my stitch marker. Knit my 4. Alright, so let's take a look at what is going to happen. Again, if we look at this, I have half my braid here. That was with these 4 stitches. That means this time around, I want to hit these 4 stitches. So again, I'm going to purl up to the marker. Slip my marker. Get ready to knit. Again, take a look. These 4, I just did. So I want to let this beginning part just happened. I need to twist 3, 4, 5, and 6 really. So I'm going to knit the first 2. Now I'm on the 4 that I want 2 and 2 to switch places. But again, I want the outside to look like it twists in, which means these 2 need to be in front, which means when I take these stitches off onto the cable needle and get them into my little valley, I want these 2 to be in front, so I need to hang the cable needle in the back because that's not the one I want to be visible. I want these 2 outside ones to be visible. So then I can twist him up. Sorry if I just went out of the field of vision. It is hard to watch what I'm doing and see what's in the screen. But then if I mush these over and I knit them off my cable needle, looks kind of like a hot mess. Let's finish the row and purl my 4. So this twisted in, outside twisted in. We're going to keep going, but I realized I've been knitting with the part of my yarn that I've cut to do something else with, so I need to grab a new thing of yarn to attach here. I'm going to work across the wrong side row, which you've already seen. I'm going to knit my knits and purl my purls and knit my knits, and I will see you on the other side where we will show you again how this works to logic out how to do a braid. Okay, so I have done my wrong side row. and I've purled on my right side row to get up to where my braid is, right here. And here's how to remember if you put this down for a while and say, oh no, where was I? Where I am, I'm back to where I have to replicate the one down here. But what I can tell is, okay, where, let me move my stitch marker over. Let me get my yarn set, and then let's talk about this. The last twist I did was over here. The tight part is over on the left side, which means I need to do a cable over here on the right side where it is loose. So I need these first 4 stitches to switch places, 2 and 2. And I'm always taking my outside edge and twisting it in, which means it's going to be a left leaning cable, which means these stitches need to be in front. And they're the stitches that I'm going to slide onto my cable needle to hold out of the way to help them twist and change places. And if these are the ones that need to be visible in front, I need to keep my cable needle in front. And then I will knit the next 2 stitches. And then I will forget about my left needle for a while I flip up my cable needle and knit these 2 off the cable needle. Don't forget about the cable needle. Then you will come back in a couple rows and be very sad because it's still hanging out there. And now I can knit my last 2 stitches. And then I can purl the end 4. And my clanky needles that keep hitting the table. So now you can really start to see the braid taking shape. Everything twists in. So I will probably either speed this up or jump through this section to do my wrong side row and get back to my next right side row. Okay, apart from a little bit of a pulled stitch there, which I just tucked in, I'm back at my 6 stitches ready to do the cable on the right side. Now the first 4 stitches have the tightest twist, which means I want to do my twist with the last 4 this time. So I can go ahead and knit my first 2 stitches. And then I will take the next 2 and I will put them on my cable needle. Now the question is, where do I want it to be? I want these stitches, the ones on the left, to twist in and be visible, which means the ones currently on my cable needle I don't want to be visible, so I'm going to put them away from myself. And I'll knit the next 2. And then I will remember that my cable needle is here, slide my stitches up and spread them apart if they got twisted, and knit them one at a time. Done with my cable needle. Time to purl to the end. And take a look at where we are so far. So again, if we take a peek at this and lay it down, the twists are going from the outside in, they are alternating, and they are only using either the first 4 or the last 4 of my 6 stitches. And if I keep this going, I will have a very, very nice looking braid. Here's your trivia quiz. On my next row, which ones am I doing? The first 4 or the last 4? I would say the last 4 are tight, which means the first 4 are the ones I do next. They will be loose, and I need to make them tight, and I need to have the outside go in which means left leaning, which means these two come in front. Well, that was a bit of a lengthier video today to try to help you see what's going on with cabling so you can do your own version of this. Or eventually, if you want to, you can do your own version of something like this. Remember, the edges of this is exactly what I was just going over. So it's a way to think through, okay, if I want a left-leaning or a right-leaning cable, how would I do that? What needs to be in front? Now there's all kinds of variations in terms of how many stitches are involved and what's happening with them. We're going over some of the basics this time. Now, you don't have to put this much thought into your cables, but if it helps you decipher instructions on a pattern, and again, a good pattern should tell you what to do where, then I think it's great if it helps you understand what's going on. I'm always a big fan of being able to read your stitches means that things get a little easier. Now, I know this video may not have seemed easy, but for some of you, maybe it's helpful. I think it's kind of fun to deconstruct what's going on, personally. I like the logic. It's fun, you know. Anyway, I hope you just enjoyed it and came with us for the ride. And my language is now failing me because it's lunchtime for me, so I need to go find lunch, figure that one out. So, like I always say, may your crafting be filled with joy and confidence. And if I can help you with that, if these videos are helpful, that's awesome. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe or hit that bell if you want to know when we do more fun stuff. Suggest stuff if I can figure out how to map it out and show you, I will. I love doing that. If you want to do a one-on-one appointment, which now we do over Zoom, so we can do anywhere, we might be able to work that out. Sometimes seeing it and feeling it, like me being there, is the most helpful. If you're local, we can work that out with masks. If you're watching this in a year or so, maybe we won't have to do the mask thing anymore. Yay! Anyway, I could ramble on, but my lunch is calling me, or figuring out what I want for lunch is calling me. So, I'll repeat it again. May your crafting be filled with joy and confidence. You can do this. And we hope you're all staying safe and you're all well. We'll talk to you later. Bye. Yes, I bribed you with treats so we can all enjoy the calmness that is the kitty currently. Yeah? Yeah. Hi, kitty.